It's Tuesday, the 24th of March, 2026. It is just past 9 p.m. on the clock, and you are very welcome to Gantry TV and the latest round of the RTA Porsche Cup Series 2026. Two very different rounds thus far in the Nürburgring and in our first round of the season. But we're set to head back across the Atlantic now for a bit of a transatlantic hop on our next couple of races as we head all the way to Daytona Beach in Florida and, of course, the iconic Daytona International Raceway. This is the side of the Daytona 500 and the Rolex 24, of course, as we head from one iconic circuit to another. And as I said, Daytona International Raceway. We're at the Roval course. No oval hijinks this evening. We're keeping it clean here with the road course. Asphalt road course, 3.56 miles, 5.729 kilometers, as I should say, in the new money 12 terms with a race lap record of 133.724 from that's Alex Palou in the Cadillac DPI, the prototype in 2022. You're very welcome to the latest round of the Porsche Cup Series, the third round indeed, and a lot of different winners and shakers, and certainly Jordan Kelly last week stamping his authority on the series. But I think Jordan could be on a controller tonight, so our potential championship leader could be behind. My name is Kevin Galvin. I'm joined as always by Evan Dalton and Ronan Hedeman in the background doing all the work behind the scenes. And Evan, Daytona, an iconic track, and we were here last time for the IndyCar series, I believe, a couple of weeks or a couple of months ago, and so these guys have somewhat of an idea of how to race around this track.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Kevin. From one famous motorsport circuit to the other, one very large circuit around a forest in Germany, and a Florida circuit that's 180-acre infield could fit Disneyland twice. We're certainly not doing things on a small scale here in the Porsche Cup. Jordan, on the sim, as far as I know, he did tell us last week that he'd be back on the controller, but Jordan, once again, a liar. What else can we expect? But Jordan has been the pace setter in this championship so far, not actually leading the series, but that could certainly change tonight. The first driver in 2026 in RTA Virtual Motorsports who completes the evening hat-trick. He did it last week in style in the Nürburgring.
Yeah, absolutely. In sensational stuff from Jordan, who very clearly had a massive pace advantage over the rest of the rest of the grid, should I say. He's particularly that final race, he was very quickly out in front, and from there never looked back, did Jordan. So great to see him doing so well this evening, and we will see how he gets on. He's second in the grid at the moment. Peter McCann out on top at the moment, but I believe that's Peter's usual crossfield rallycross antics, as you can see. So you can kind of discount our admin making a mockery of his own league, and you can take it that from Jordan Kelly down, that's when we're really looking at the actual lap times.
I just think a good exit onto the banking makes an awful lot of a difference here. Might have just got down on the power early, but no, you can ignore that part this time. Jordan Kelly is your pace
about
setter.
400 yards too early, I think that's the problem.
Yeah, or just didn't do the infield. But here's your championship standings nonetheless. And it's Brandon McGowan who is on the top by 20 points ahead of Dylan McClements in second position. Jordan Kelly then in third, just a point ahead of Conor Mealy in fourth. Harvey Dara then in fifth. Nicky Charlier in sixth, ahead of Camto Chukwa in seventh. It's been a very dark horse of a season for Camto Chukwa, given how much attention we paid to him in the scholarship series. It's another scholarship driver, Jack Wynne, in eighth. Then the near scholarship driver, Jan Zoutevella, in ninth. Ahead of Rory O'Shea in 10th position. So compared to our Formula Vs, we have a lot more of the historic RTA frontrunners towards the top.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we were expecting going back to the tin tops. A lot of these guys, the likes of Jack Wynn and Jan Zoutfeld. I mean, Jan is racing Porsche Cups at the moment and obviously was competitive in the first round at the Red Bull Ring. But Jan, like it's the likes of the McClements brothers, the Jordan Kellys of this world that we kind of are used to battling the Team DDR guys. We're used to battling up the front. I suppose they're kind of more the sort of traditional drivers that we would expect to be up there as they all come piling out of this pit road for the qualifying series. Just to remark on was it Jordan I was going to talk about? No, I had a train of thought to talk about somebody, but it's Jack Wynn I was going to talk about. Jack released a video on his own YouTube channel looking back on the scholarship series and giving his thoughts and all of his emotions and feelings over the course of the season. So if you're interested, that's a great spinner out of the pits. That is number 36, Jack Wynn. Speaking of Jack, not exactly doing himself a huge amount of justice on stream here is Jack, but yeah, very interesting to see him. I suppose look, it's a great video to come check out if you can. So hopefully he'll have that all out of his system now and just about manages to catch it there. Almost does the same thing the second time in the 36 car. Let's hope he can get some heat into those tires. And yeah, I mean, he's created some clean air for himself at least.
Yeah, you don't really want clean air around here, though, unfortunately. The slipstream going to be very powerful, as you would expect on a track where you are flat out for quite some time. That's Dylan McClements, though, who's just weaving his way up the banking and trying to get a bit of clean air for his qualifying time. Just needs a nice calm week this week for Dylan McClements. Was involved in a couple of battles last week. He got 9th in Heat 2 and then got 4th in Heat number 3. There was no points, or no top 10 scored in Heat number 1, I should say. So he'll just be looking for a bit of a settler. Just get into the groove, keep things clean. But I can't imagine that's going to be very easy here tonight. We have a lot of cars on what is a fairly tight infield here at Daytona, which you will know from the Rolex 24 can cause some hassle.
Yeah, let's have a look at it on board here. We're looking at, can we pick somebody maybe to go on board with? We can have a look at the overall things. We're looking at the High Prix number 81 and got there before you this week, Evan, of Rory O'Shea. So coming into the International Horseshoe Turn 3, you want to get as late an apex here as possible. There's quite a lot of space there out the outside. As you can see, Rory, you can go left of that line there without getting a 1X. And then it depends on how brave you are feeling going through this Turn 4 kink. If you're on cold tires, you do not want to take that flat out, but if you get the tires up to temperature, you can take it flat out. Then sticking to the left, again a late apex here for the infield horseshoe, or known as the second horseshoe. Before you get to this turn 6, this is a very tricky turn 6. You want to brake there at the relief road, cut the curb on the left hand side, and then it's hard to get the power down. Now, of course, that is an access road for a lot of the Daytona stuff, so it doesn't necessarily have the same wear as the rest of the track, so isn't as well rubbered in. So you want to put the power down as soon as you can, but you can't quite as much as you get onto the banking here. And you head into kind of the iconic corner of this as Rory looks like he's going to pull out of this lap. He's going to pull in behind Dylan McClements. We can have a see the line here. So normally you brake just at the traffic lights there. You cut the corner on the left and then you swing around, try and just touch the curbing on the right hand side, and you can take quite a lot of that curbing on the left hand side, that exit curb. You can actually go quite aggressively over it. iRacing doesn't punish you for that, and then it's a run all the way through the sweeping third bend, I suppose, of this mega speedway, super speedway, and up to the line. It's kind of a tri-oval speedway in a way. You kind of have a final corner here, so as you go back down into turn 1, and again the traffic light on your right is the line there. You want to stay to the inside of that line. That was taken out by iRacing recently, just ahead of the Daytona 24 guys. Were going all the way into that infield there and then hooking all the way back around and causing untold misery for any of us who decided to do the proper line. So thankfully iRacing stamped that out. So this is a track that I suppose as yours truly, knows exceptionally well, having raced the Daytona for the last 5 years and putting practice laps in. But of course, this is the corner that we're all looking at. This bus stop chicane, or now known as the Daytona chicane, since the twinned agreement between themselves and the French, well, no, it's the Lassart Motor Racing Federation, I suppose. But yeah, this VCO. Is really, Evan, VCO, that's it. This is the one that is going to be really interesting to see like it's so easy to get things wrong, especially if you go too hot into the corner. You can get hooked around on that first curb, and all of a sudden you find yourself stuck in the wall on the left hand side.
Yeah, it's so easy to get it wrong through here. They've adjusted the chicanes as well, which a lot of the drivers aren't too, or they've adjusted the curbs, I should say, which a lot of the drivers aren't too fond of, but it's so easy to go wrong here. It looks like it's such a simple section of track, but it really isn't. I would definitely say one of the more difficult corners on this circuit, on sort of the endurance seasons circuit, which is quite difficult. Then you have this banking as well, 31 degrees, which is one of the steepest bankings in world motorsport. Indianapolis doesn't even cross into the 20s, just for a comparison. Um, the actual bankings are built on a load of dirt. You might remember our shot at the very start of this broadcast, which showed a big lake. That's called Lake Lloyd, and that's actually where the dirt for the bankings was dug up from. So very interesting on how the circuit was built back when Bill France Sr. had that vision in 1953. But in terms of our qualifying here tonight, it's currently Dylan McClements, who is on top by a tenth of a second, ahead of Colin O'Regan in second position, Rory O'Shaden in third, Nicky Charlier in fourth, Jordan Kelly, Michael Corrie and Dean Power both up there. So we're getting a few different names towards the top. Matt O'Donoghue there goes to fourth, ahead of Harvey Dara. So interesting to see. I wonder, Kevin, is that what sort of you were alluding to? Drivers who've done a lot of Daytona 24s will have a lot more experience here than those who haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose particularly when it comes to that bus stop section, if you can get that right, if you have that nailed, that can earn you 5 or 6 tenths, which, as we know here around the timing boards, is 5 or 6 tenths between the leaders and the mid pack. So it makes a massive amount of difference to the experience here if you have it. That's another corner as well where you'll often see inexperienced drivers, particularly on the opening laps when the tires aren't quite warmed up, they try and pin the throttle too heavy. They end up spinning themselves around and then having to rejoin on the infield on the left hand side back in. So it is a very interesting, I suppose, nuanced track. It doesn't look that difficult. And actually, it looks, because it's so flat, like it wouldn't be a fun track to drive. But I can tell you, it's one of those tracks that it just sucks you in. There's only 12 corners in it, and you're trying to nail every single one, and you're constantly chasing that extra tenth or 2 tenths. You never really feel like you've nailed a lap round here, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so addictive, and it's one of the reasons why the Rolex 24, particularly on the iRacing service, continues to be the most popular special event in the calendar.
Yeah, it's by far the most popular in terms of attendance figures and I think general enjoyment as well. It's something I very much look forward to doing in the future. But Colin O'Regan in second position there, and Matt O'Donoghue in fifth. And I believe this is Matt's debut in the Porsche Cup. But O'Donoghue's have a very successful debut history in RTA. The last O'Donoghue to make his debut, well, that was Michael O'Donoghue. And you may be thinking, Evan, who in the world? As there he goes to pole, right on cue. You may be thinking, who in the world is Michael O'Donoghue? Well, Michael O'Donoghue made his debut in the LMP2's round one in Portimao. It's the only RTA race he's ever done. He took pole, heat one win, heat two win, and was second in heat number three. So Matt, the surname, has a bit of history that he needs to live up to, but doing well, currently on provisional pole by just under 2 tenths of a second.
Yeah, and that's a substantial gap there, that 2 tenths gap as we head towards qualifying. We've kind of noticed that the best times come in and around this period at the moment, and then as the track gets warmer and warmer, the times start to come down. Then, so it's very rarely you would see somebody take a late stab at a pole position. Certainly you'll have drivers who didn't quite get the lap in that they needed for one reason or another getting up there, but in terms of getting a really really fast lap, it's going to be difficult. Here's Nicky Charlier now. He has Jack Wynn on his inside. He's going to have to back off here. Is Nicky? I can't see Jack on my timing screen. He's quite a bit down and obviously struggling a little bit around this track with these Porsche Cup cars. But we talked about, actually he's bottom of the table thus far, and I don't think he has a representative lap in yet. No, he doesn't, does Jack Wynn. So here's his opportunity now. He's Eric Killeen on his outside, but Eric's going to let him go. We'll have a look to see how the 36 car gets on. As I said, Jack, reflecting on his experience in the scholarships and reflecting on quite how close it was in terms of how the points all broke down and that finish at the end in Sebring, of course, just up the road from here. Where this weekend's iRacing special event will take place. Let's remember the Sebring 12 hours. Jack is. We'll see whether Jack can get a reasonably good lap in here because he's going to be really hunting down, wanting to hunt down these guys. Speaking of infields, you're talking there earlier about Lake. Uh, you have to remind me. Lake Lloyd, is it?
Yes.
Lake Lloyd. So we referenced this earlier, but you talked about Indianapolis. Indianapolis has a golf course in the middle of it. So with I think 6 or 7 of the holes on the infield and the rest of the
Only
holes on
7.
the outfield, and the Royal Shea's gone up second, by the way. Um, that course is, I think it's like $70 out of season, but on the week of the Indy 500, it's like $250. So, yeah, you definitely know when to make their money in that one. But yeah, I suppose every big super speedway, they have so much space in the middle, they have to make use of it. Whereas Daytona, I suppose, a lot of that goes towards the trucks and the what would I say, the motorhomes as well of the drivers who pretty much stay on site for the entirety of the event.
Yeah, and then of course you've Talladega that's done absolutely nothing with theirs, which is another approach. But Kevin, speaking of his third love, golf, there was in Evan and Ronan country at the weekend at the famous K Club. Probably the best round of golf they've ever seen played there. I can imagine. Dylan McClemens goes up to fourth, but his rival Jan Zoutevella is in front of him in third, and his newfound rival Nicky Charlier is in sixth. There was a little bit of a shouting match seemingly in the Discord call last week between Dylan and Nicky when they made contact a couple of times. So it'd be interesting to see how those two treat each other out on track together. But with just over 3 minutes to go, I should say, Matt O'Donoghue, Rory O'Shea front row. They've just been pipped by Buncrana's Jordan Kelly. First man into the 43s. He is inevitable.
Yeah, what incredible work from Jordan Kelly. I was just about to make a start on talking about Dylan McClemens, but this man has arrested our attention for the moment. He was absolutely exceptional last week, Evan, and I know, like, very, very rarely would we ever give driver of the day, if ever, to a driver that's won all three. But I think last week was the closest we've ever come to doing that because Jordan's performance at the Nürburgring, particularly race two, he was absolutely flying in race two and built an enormous gap across the rest of the field and looked supremely confident in this championship. And like, okay, well, Jordan might necessarily get on the sim every week, but if he can get on the sim enough weeks and one of the weeks is his drop round, then he might just be able to do enough to sneak across the line this championship.
Yeah, and he knows Daytona as well. Does the Daytona 24 hours every year, as you do as well, Kevin. But the last time we came here to Daytona was the last time we came here to Daytona in the Tin Tops, I should say, was the Mustang America's Cup. And himself, Ronan Doherty, and Oscar Mangum were light years in front of everyone else that day. Thankfully for Jordan, Oscar and Ronan aren't here. So leads nicely to finalising my point that Jordan has a very good chance this evening.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how Matt O'Donoghue goes up against Jordan and whether he can keep pace with the Buncrana man. I mean, like, Matt's obviously very quick, and as you said, he's kind of come out of nowhere a little bit in this grade. He has Dylan behind him as well. We'll get to talking about Dylan a little bit as well, but it's going to be really interesting to see how Matt gets on against Jordan and to see whether he can go toe to toe one of the RTA greats, as that's number 46, Colin O'Regan, going for a little bit of a lawnmower on the outside there. That corner is absolutely lethal in hypercars, I can tell you that much. One-way ticket to the barrier there on the outside because the grass slopes away. So the minute you lock up, you've no chance of making that corner. And once you get on that grass, straight into the barrier you go. You've no chance of catching yourself. But on Dylan McClemens, coming back to him, you talked about it a little bit there, Evan, about his disagreements, shall we say, with the only American on the grid, Nicky Charlier, who's coming back to his home country a few times between now and the end of the season. Dylan obviously was involved in incidents in the first race with Jan Zoutfella, involved in the incidents with second evening with Nicky, and it's funny that we were talking first about Dylan when we first arrived in the scene. We were saying he probably needs to be a little bit more aggressive and that he's probably a little bit too passive and too nice to everybody. It seems like the dial has gone the other way in this series, and if anything, he kind of needs to dial it back a little bit in the next couple of races.
Yeah, it probably does. But at the end of the day, he's still 15. So it's still a learning curve every race for him. But I think Dylan knows what he has to do, and he's going to do that. Maybe just tone down the aggression a little bit, go back to that more consistent approach, and the more consistent results will return. But I've no doubt that he will be listening to the right voices, getting the right advice, and performing once again. Harvey Dara, isn't that a turn for the books? With 5 seconds left to go in qualifying, we're speaking about one Antrim boy and the other Antrim hotshot. The karting prodigy Harvey Dara is able to steal pole position from Jordan Kelly.
Well, he made a fool of me, didn't he? I was only just saying how it was unlikely that somebody would pip a pole position right at the last minute, and lo and behold, egg all over my face. What a brilliant lap from Harvey Dara, getting in ahead of Jordan Kelly. That's going to be a really, really interesting battle. Now, is that one off for Harvey, or can he keep that pace up through the race?
Yeah, not his first RTA pole position for Harvey Dara. Took one in Lime Rock back in the Formula V's. Jordan Kelly is starting second. Matt O'Donoghue in third. Dylan McClemens in fourth. And Rory O'Shea and Jan Zoutavella on row 3. Row 4, Colin O'Regan, Nicky Charlier, and Camto Chukwa and Brandon McGaughan round out the top 10. Then it's Sean McGoldrick, Dean Power, Conor Melia, Jack Wynne, Michael Corrie, Lee Cogan, Simran Tacker, Tony Griffin, Dermot Toomey, and Peter McCann second off in 20th position. 21st then we've Dave Collier ahead of Eric Killeen, Dara O'Connor in 23rd, Lawrence de Souza in 24th ahead of Peter Duke, and Seb Vegley making his debut tonight. Ian May in 27th, Stephen Donnelly in 28th, and Ross Wheatley, Simon Hutchings, Jamal Gandor, Sean Cullen, David Edwards, Jared Love, Grace McCallion, Enda Farrell, Phil Upson, and no proper time on the board for Queeveen Brennan. So interesting to see a couple names down there, the likes of LD, the likes of Peter Duke, who might be able to make moves in the race.
Yeah, and it's LD's birthday today, so happy birthday, Lawrence de Soswa. If the chat is at least to be believed, although I wouldn't necessarily always believe what the chat say. Also, shout out to Kevin Joyce, one of our scholarship runners last year, is currently building his sim rig and watching along.
Yes, 5 lights coming on, and it's all kicking off already. Nicky Charlier's already reported Dylan McClemens for impeding in qualifying, but let's see what the standing start on the Daytona Oval is like for Harvey Dara, and he's got away well compared to Jordan Kelly. Matt O'Donoghue already pushing Dara in towards the first corner. Dylan McClemens looking to make moves as well, and the 2 green cars are now side by side with the high pre Rory O'Shea, and O'Shea will be looking for this one, and bang, already into the wall goes Rory O'Shea, but not too much damage, and they've all seemed to make it safely through, down towards the international horseshoe for the first time.
Yeah, Jordan Kelly almost got collected in that one going through there. So that is very, very close for Jordan, as he unfortunately manages to, well, I suppose fortunately for him, manages to stay on track, but still in third position. Harvey Dara now still leading Matt O'Donoghue in the 24 car, so he's nipped in ahead of Jordan on that start. The Scotsman, as we said, making his debut this evening. Also up 2 places, Brandon McGaughan and Conor Melia. Colin O'Regan down 4th places. Camto Chukwa down 3 places. And Lawrence de Soswa up 4 places on his birthday.
I believe his birthday was actually the weekend, but happy birthday, Lawrence, nonetheless. Harvey Dara, what a monster of a start that is to get in front of Matt O'Donoghue by 0.5 of a second. You're doing something else if you're able to pull a gap to the slipstream here, but I don't think Harvey Dara will be able to do so. Big gainer on the first lap. Conor Mealy up 3 positions, as is Tony Griffin. And Brandon McGaughan is going last of the late breakers. Bit of bully ball on Nicky Charlier in towards the chicane. If you don't back out, we will both crash approach maybe from Brandon, but he's able to pull off that move. Michael Corrie is dropping down the order, as is LD, but bigger problems for Corrie. De Soswa, I think, just had a slow down penalty. Jordan Kelly into the slipstream, and Matt O'Donoghue then onto the tri-oval, down towards the first corner, and Harvey Dara you can just see blown by with the slipstream, and Jordan Kelly will fancy both of them here in towards the first corner. Goes from outside to inside. Isn't that a thing of beauty from Buncrana's Jordan Kelly down the inside of Matt O'Donoghue, and the pace setter in the Porsches is into the wall.
Oh, Jordan, he absolutely did everything right, and then right at the end just lost the tail on the accelerator and put it in the wall on the left-hand side. He avoided it in the first lap, couldn't do so in the second lap. It was a beautifully set up move, though, by Jordan, pushing Matt into the lead, then swapping, or pushing Dylan to the lead, should I say, then swapping down the inside, getting inside Harvey Dara, but thankfully for Harvey, nobody else getting collected in that. But what a shame for Jordan Kelly, did everything right. We're talking about the Buncrana man as an outside candidate for the championship, and now all of a sudden finds himself way down the order in 8th position. He's going to try and recovery drive from here as Dylan McClellan still following Harvey Dara. Did Dylan have a small bit of damage on the front? I'm not sure. Maybe it's just the way I looked at it. It looked like he had a small dent on the front, but maybe that's me mistaken. Conor Melia up another place now into 9th position, but Man O'Donoghue leads us going into the second lap.
Yeah, Dylan did take a tap on the first lap, so wouldn't be surprised if there was a bit of damage. Jordan Kelly, not the first Irishman to clobber that wall at turn 2. Naceman James Rowe did in the 2024 Daytona or Rolex 24 in the Pratt Miller Motorsports LMP2, clobbered that and then got milled by Kamui Kobayashi later on. But Matt O'Donoghue in the race lead, Harvey Dara in the pink tucked right behind him, as is Dylan McClements, and they're all flying down towards turn number 1 once again. That was a very clever approach from Jordan Kelly, and it looks like Dylan McClements is looking to try and recreate that one, but Harvey Dara is wise to it this time and stays on the inside line. Very difficult to go around the outside, and Dylan McClements just needs to add that little bit of extra pressure to the brake pedal to avoid flying off at the first corner. A lot cleaner this time around.
Yeah, definitely the bump drafting is a technique that's going to be really important here. We can see that, especially through the tri-oval. It doesn't happen as much going into the bus stop, but coming out of that bus stop and carrying on over the line, there's such a long it's a curve, but it also straightens out for quite a long section of that. So if you can get tucked in behind and get a little bit of a nudge, there's a few that can do it, but if you can do it properly, you can make some serious headway for not only the guy that you're pushing, but also yourself as well. So, that's Matt O'Donoghue getting very early on the brakes and catching out Harvey Dara, who almost goes into the back of him. I think a small bit of a touch, but no harm done as the two continue back onto the banking for the 4th time this evening.
Yeah, the German manufacturer's ABS system being put to the test royally there. That was very close between Harvey Dara and Matt O'Donoghue. And Dara surely he's not going to go for this one into the chicane, as Matt O'Donoghue just takes a defensive approach, but smart from Dara just to back off and get the run down towards the first corner. We're certainly going to have a drag race to the line in 5 minutes time anyways. We're halfway through this opening heat of the evening. 10 minutes heat 1, 15 heat 2, 20 heat number 3 with a reverse top 8. Lee Cogan's picked up a slowdown for 18th position, but the number 18 is on the tail of the Angler Racing number 24 of Matt O'Donoghue down towards the first corner, and Harvey Dara just bumping him all his way through. Wouldn't look out of place at the Daytona 500. And then we'll lift off and let Matt O'Donoghue lead, but Dylan McClements doesn't fancy any of this teamwork nonsense. He's going to go around the outside. There's a little bit of a rub on the front tyres between the two, and I thought someone went straight on there, but it was
that wasn't your eyes deceiving you. There was somebody went straight on there. I'm not entirely sure. Is it Peter McCann? I'm not sure. He's the only one that has a slowdown.
Banking.
Maybe it looked like they went from the front banking to the back banking. Anyway, the bump drafting is great until it isn't around here, and I'm sure any of you who've ever seen any iRacing big oopsies moments or any of the compilation videos will know that bump drafting can go very, very wrong very quickly. So these guys have to be careful here, because you're rolling off a banking into that flat straightaway as well. I think there's 0.3 of a degree, so basically you're taking almost 100 times off the banking that's on the corners, and then going into that flat banking. So you have to be very, very careful about how you do that. Dylan McClements ahead of Harvey Dara now at the moment, managed to get that move done in the infield, but there's still so much time left. And Evan, this track is kind of so well known for those famous Miata, those MX-5 races,
yes,
and the drag races to the line in those. I suspect, as you said, we should have something similar for the final bit of this. So I'm looking forward to, I would say, clips at the ready, ladies and gentlemen, as we go through the Daytona, the newly named Daytona chicane for the final time. Dylan now caught on the outside. He pulled out of that slipstream, actually, and that's invited Harvey Dara to go and give Matt O'Donoghue a push. That's going to get the two of them through it, and Dylan's going to be pinned to the outside here now at the first corner. So not a great move there from the 88 to the side to get himself out of that slipstream, and he's going to have a battle here to try and get in as a move down the inside from Jan Zoutman, the Dutchman. He's very used to racing on flat surfaces, not a huge amount in mountains or banking where he comes from, and he manages to get that move done. Great move from the 32 car.
Very, very smart from Jean Zoutevella. Brandon McGowan got a nudge off Dylan McClements and went barreling into the Western Horseshoe. Harvey Dara's just been nudged on the exit of it as well. And Dylan McClements has to run on the pair of them down towards the dogleg at turn number 4. But McGowan is ahead for the time being. Rory O'Shea in the high pre, and off the road goes Jordan Kelly once again. But he's able to rejoin. He's made contact. And it looks like he's hit Harvey Dara. Couldn't quite see it, but Jordan Kelly is having a Daytona disaster.
Yeah, what a nightmare for Kelly. You could see when he was coming across the grass, he was never going to carry the speed that he needed, especially with damage on the front as well. And it's a small miracle he didn't take out anybody else, although we couldn't quite see exactly what happened there. Harvey Dara's down 5 places, but he's still very much in the running, so I think that's more from the contact on the exit of the International Horseshoe. Apologies, folks, for the technical issues that we seem to be having, but Jean Zoutevella leading anyway at the moment. Matt O'Donoghue in second place, followed by Brandon McGowan. Brandon, by the way, looked a little bit squirrely going into that International Horseshoe, Evan, but Brandon is up 6 places in this one. He's flying in that 89 machine.
Yes, he is, and Jean Zoutevella will lead us onto what I assume will be the last lap of this race. And Dylan McClements, despite attacking 2 different cars now, is once again on the outside and 3 wide onto the tri-oval. Brandon McGowan goes for the high line, and the spotters will be screaming at this pack down towards the first corner. But Jean Zoutevella crucially has a clear line at it. Dylan McClements on the outside, very comfortable on this outside line it seems, and wide goes Jean Zoutevella, and he's lost an awful lot of time there for no reason whatsoever. So Matt O'Donoghue leads.
Yeah, Jan was going too deep into that corner, getting pinned on the outside, and there's no grip out there as Simran Thakkar spins off in the background as well. He's down a few places, and it looks like Eric Killeen is dropped down as well. Tony Griffin dropping down too, so lots of contact. Conor Melia, having had such a good start, seems to have had an issue as well. He's now down 9 places. Sean McGoldrick down 15 places. Michael Corey down 12 places. Dermot Toomey out of the race as well. So a couple of big losers, but Peter Duke, you talked about him as well as being far down the list. He was in 25th position, up to 13th now, Peter, and might harbour ambitions for an outside chance of getting on the pole position for the feature race. As we all hold our breath, ladies and gentlemen, here we go as we head towards the Daytona chicane for the final time in this opening heat of round 3 of the RTA Porsche Cup Series.
Not the worst time for Matt O'Donoghue to fall to second place, because he's crucially going to have a slipstream towards the line, and you would suspect there'll be no bump drafting this time round. The Team Didier machine, the number 88 of Dylan McClements, pivots high way too early, has to tuck back into line, and he's very lucky that that space wasn't filled by Harvey Dara. Jean Zoutevella, 3/10 of a second he leads, coming towards the tri-oval. Easy, it's in the bag here for Jean Zoutevella, or is it? As he's not going to give up that inside line. Matt O'Donoghue not going to have the overspeed. And I tell you what, my career's been saved by 5,000s.
Yeah, just about. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about qualifying and Man O'Donoghue making it, or sorry, Harvey Dara making a fool of me. Man O'Donoghue almost made a fool of you, Evan, but just about. Jan Zoutevella hanging on to the race win.
Easy.
We did have a drag race, but not the kind of drag race that we expected, and I think Harvey a little bit disappointed not to be involved enough in that. Big contact with Dylan McClements as well at the end between himself and Matt O'Donoghue, but just a shout for Matt O'Donoghue. What a superb opening race for him in this series. Really, really impressive, battling with the best, going toe-to-toe with them, and I think the big surprise in this one is Jordan Kelly falling all the way down to 8th position.
Yeah, I think so. I'm really interested as who were both running the wall into the checkered flag, Ross Chastain style, but that's a point for later. That's interesting now that it seems to be that if you're within 3/10 of a second, you're going to get them on the run to the line. We literally couldn't have had a better example. So Jean Zoutevella led into the chicane, was a lot more committed through the second part of it, and that just about gave him enough. But Jean, 30 points in the board. Matt O'Donoghue will still pick up 28 for his troubles, so not a bad day at the office. But it is Jean Zoutevella, your confirmed race winner. Matt O'Donoghue in second. 3,000s it turned out to be. Dylan McClements in third. Harvey Dara in fourth. Then it was Brandon McGowan, Rory O'Shea, Nicky Charlier, Jordan Kelly, Colin O'Regan, Camto Chukwa, Jack Wynne, Dean Power, Peter Duke, ahead of his fellow namesake Peter McCann. Then it was Simran Thakkar, Stephen Donnelly, Lee Cogan, Jared Love, Dave Collier, and Dara O'Connor in 20th position. In 21st, Conor Mealy, Lawrence de Soswa. In 22nd, Eric Killeen, 23rd. And it was Ross Wheatley, Simon Hutchings, David Edwards, Sean McGoldrick, Seb Viegel, Tony Griffin, Jamal Cantor, Phil Hubson, Queeveen Brennan, Sean Cullen, Michael Corrie, Grace McCallion, Enda Farrell, Dermot Toomey, and Ian May, with the back four not completing the full race distance.
Yeah, not a lot of turnaround time as we head for our second race, and it's going to be Jan Zoutvella leading Matt O'Donoghue. So we have Holland, followed by Scotland, followed by two boys from Antrim, three boys from Antrim, am I right in saying, with Brandon McGahan, and then Rory O'Shea down in Wexford as we await the lights for the second race.
5 lights are on, and it was the low side of the banking that got a much better start in heat number 1, and that pattern seems to be the same, apart from Harvey Dara, who's just got the launch control nailed on these Porsches. But Matt O'Donoghue, alongside Jan Zoutvella, in towards the first corner, not for the first time in this race, and Jan Zoutvella has made a awful attempt at making that corner, and Dylan McClements is able to swoop through. They're free wide through turn number 2 and heading down towards the Western Horseshoe. Zoutvella defending for his life. There's a big lunge down the inside from Dean Power. I think he's got about 3 and 1.
Yeah, Harvey Dara losing out there. Contact between himself and Matt O'Donoghue going through that chicane. And Matt almost very, very close to turning Jan Zoutvella, who came back across him from that outside line. And that almost happening. Brandon McGahan now sneaking past Matt. There's a battle here going through the second horseshoe between the 89 and 24 cars that swap some paint for good measure as well as they bang doors as they head down towards turn number 6 here. Back onto the oval for the first time in this second race. Rory O'Shea in the High Prix number 81 car, sneaking up the inside of Brandon McGahan there as the two red and black painted machines, very Super GT-esque with Nicky Charlier and Harvey Dara. Harvey disappointed there. I mean, had a great super pole lap and then now finds himself down in 7th position in the second race. I don't think that's where he would expect himself to be. Jordan Kelly down to 8th position as well. Now we're looking at the 24 car who got that wrong there, missed the apex on the chicane. He's going to take a slow down now. He's going to have to slow down. Of course, this is his first lap as well. No delta, so iRacing are going to punish him heavily. Expect to see the 24 car drop down the standings, and whether he can get back into the slipstream will be the big question. Already a huge gap between Jan Zoutvella and Rory O'Shea. Now a second between him. It's between McClements and Zoutvella, but McClements into the lead. The young boy from County Antrim, the 15-year-old, showing them how it's done. And let's hope that Dylan can stay instant free for this second race.
He's already been reported twice this evening as Dylan McClements, once in qualifying by Nicky Charlier and then in that race by Brandon McGahan. So it could have been for moving in the braking zone, I think. But it'll be interesting to see. O'Donoghue files out in 12th after that slowdown penalty and big pivot to the outside. It's going to be quite fun, I think, to see Matt O'Donoghue try to cut through this pack, but that move wasn't successful. He's lost another spot to Peter McCann in the Aaron Tiles sponsored entry. This is weird tonight. I mentioned Aaron Tiles and you mentioned High Prix, usually the way around. Harvey Dara, though, defending from the other VRA-esque livery of Jordan Kelly.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for Matt. I mean, it looked like that move was almost one out of frustration more than anything, and he clearly has the pace advantage over some of those cars behind him. But as you've seen already with some of Jan Zoutvella's moves, if you get in the wrong part of the track here, you just lose all traction, and being off the racing line is not an ideal place to be, so you do have to be a little bit more creative if you want to get passing done, as we see Harvey Dara and Jordan Kelly starting to work together here now. The number 11 giving the 18 a push as they try and close the gap on Brandon McGahan and Nicky Charlier ahead of them. That gap currently at 0.6 of a second. 3 minutes in here, the enormous car park of what is Daytona Beach Airport, International Airport, is behind. An ideal spot to come in and out of if you are watching racing in this part of the world, and I know many do indeed. As you can see, the beer bumper, Dylan McClements, and that's a menacing looking number 81 car. As Dylan slips to the outside, he sees Rory giving him the push. He can see the pace advantage and just moved up into it and allowed him. No, Dylan comes back down on Jan, and that rivalry commenced from the opening race. As we go 3 wide into this opening corner, Jan's going to back out of it and allow Dylan ahead of him, but that was not so smart from the 88, who almost cuts the nose off the Dutchman, who finds himself in second place. That was all very touch and go, Evan Dawson.
Yeah, the higher powers of racing decided not to punish Dylan and Jan with netcode for that one, and I'm not truly sure how, because that was very close to being disastrous. But it is still those two at the front in this one. It was smart by Dylan to move up to where the fast car was to get the bit of a bump trapped. But But yeah, it didn't work out for the better. I think he'll be holding the inside next time round. Jordan and Harvey have worked together nicely to catch this front train, and Nicky Charlier is now the one under threat. But good night tonight evening. Good night tonight evening, that's a sentence. Good evening tonight for Nicky Charlier, who is on the back of the Jägermeister sponsored entry of Brandon McGaughan. Camto's back to normal running this week, so it is just Brandon in the alcohol sponsored machine, which I would not be allowed in his real world motorsport endeavours, so he's getting all of the fun out of the way here in RTA. But 4 or 5 minutes on the clock, we're a third of the way through.
Yeah, in fairness, speaking about sponsorships and looking at the car just behind the Nicky Charlie here in the number 11, I don't know how likely it would be that either Gantry TV or indeed Earn Tiles would ever have their sponsorship shown at the Daytona International Speedway, but perhaps the good folks at Earn Tiles may one day sponsor a NASCAR entry, and I would love to see the day when Joey Logano says, well, it's just great, our number 86 Earn Tiles Ford Mustang was just really good this evening. That's something I would love to see. Right.
That's after he wipes out half the field, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, there's a joke to be made there, but I'm not going to make it. Our Nicky Charlier in 4th position, the number 3 car. That is my racing number. So I wouldn't say that means I'm rooting for Nicky, but it's always a number I like to see out on the grid. He is currently in 4th position, and obviously had his battles with Dylan McClements last week. I'm sure he would love nothing more than to get past the 88 at some point in this race and have bragging rights going into the final race. Right, Dean Dr. Pepper Power in the 17. He's all over the back of Jack Wynn at the moment. And let's see if he can put that power down and get past the number 36 car. Brandon McGaughan, a bit of an up and down race for Brandon. It was trending quite high there in the opening race, gone up quite a few places after a poor qualifying session, but it's dropped down a bit now in this one. He's down 3 places at the moment. Matt O'Donoghue all the way down to 12th position, and Matt, after that slowdown in through the chicane in that opening couple of laps, doesn't seem to be able to bring that pace back.
Yeah, a couple of little errors for Brandon has sent him down the order. Matt O'Donoghue as well, that slowdown being the big costly one. So once you fall down, it's not easy to come back up, it seems. And this is Harvey Dara and Chukwa Campto back in Rexy for this week. So it's always nice to have 2 cars with the same livery. That's really beneficial to myself and Kevin. Here's the front runners though, and they're running 2 lanes, very NASCAR-esque. Rory O'Shea just about edges in front, but Dylan McClements is going to have the inside line here, and he's going to run in the middle of the circuit, middle of the asphalt, and rotate round nicely, run to that outside, and he will just keep the place. Jan Zoutevella battling and arm wrestling his way through with Rory O'Shea, and I thought Rory was going to try down the inside into the Western Horseshoe. We mentioned Mazda MX-5 racing at Daytona. Jan Zoutevella hoping to race an MX-5 at some point this year himself as well, but in last week's venue, the Nürburgring, rather here than in the state of Florida. Is Rory O'Shea going to try down the inside? No. Smarter racer than that is Rory. Knows that not a sensible movement towards the Western Horseshoe. He will stay in 3rd.
Yeah, and on the subject of MX-5s at Daytona, very interesting that a couple of years ago we raced the Sebring 12 Hours, and our only ever iRacing special event win, but it came ahead of another car with a guy in it by the name of Nathan Nicholson, who I ended up chatting with afterwards on voice chat and got his Instagram details. Follow him on Instagram. And what did he pop up with only a few years ago? But now he's racing in that MX-5 series in IMSA and was involved in one of those last lap drag races. So yeah, a nice little switch from sim racing to real racing, and Nathan competing in the MX-5 championship. So yeah, you never know who you might come across on this service. And as we're looking at Nicky Charlie here, you get kart racers, you get the likes of Jordan Kelly ahead of you, but you also get guys from across the water and across the pond who are also plying their own trade and have their own ambitions to race in some of these great motorsport institutions like Daytona. Right, Once again, we have two lanes. Jordan Kelly is the single occupant of the outside lane, and two will become one, as the famous song goes. But whether it'll result in an accident, as it remains to be seen. We remain too wide behind Dylan McClements here. That's not an easy place to go too wide, particularly if you're the car in Jordan Kelly's position. But he's done really well as Jordan Kelly to stick to the inside, and despite the pressure from Jan on the outside, he's held that position. Jordan Kelly into second place, very well deserved.
Yeah, excellent move by Jordan Kelly. It's not finished yet, this battle, as Jan Zouteveld and Rory O'Shea will be side by side, and O'Shea full commitment through the dog leg. He's ended up losing the position to Nicky Charlier, but you got to respect the commitment, and Charlier's going to try down the West Horseshoe. They've traded paints and door banging between the two. Both have come out unscathed. Jan Zouteveld in third position, and there'll be a little bit of bump drafting on to the banking. Interesting you bring up encountering real racing drivers on iRacing. Kevin, our very own Conor Melia on the grid, beat Fernando Alonso once in an iRace, so that's his claim to fame. My only racing driver encounter was wiped out a Fiesta Z-Tech driver the other night, but they don't know who I am, so it's grand.
Well, now you've outed yourself. So if they ever do come back in this stream, I expect some sort of message. Jan Zouteveld now falling back a little bit in 32. He just can't get the hang of that first corner yet. As Colin O'Regan now goes off, and unfortunately, we're picking all the bad bits of Colin's race this evening on stream, because he's actually been fairly competitive this evening, has Colin, but unfortunately we saw him mowing the grass earlier, and I definitely think that lawnmower is due for repairs, is due for a service after that accident. Campto Chukwa now, Rexy getting a nice little toe as we see somebody heading into the pits, and a little bit of a squally motion there from the 19 car with Rory O'Shea, but both of them managing to survive. It's all a little bit loose. They're all surviving for the moment, Evan, but they're some of them are hanging on by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, it's definitely getting antsy here in the battle for the win, but that's kind of what we want. We want to see this close quarters and potentially drama-filled racing. Dylan McClements and Jordan Kelly doing very well at the front to stretch their legs a little bit and make this a two-horse race and leave Charlier, O'Shea and Zouteveld to battle amongst themselves. We're looking at Peter McCann and Conor Melia here, who find themselves out on track time and time again. This is in the battle for 16th, and Melia, who will be returning to Irish Formula V action on Saturday, going the long way around the outside. This is Harvey Dara and Tony Griffin. It's really been a fall from grace for Harvey Dara. The number 18 is down to 13th position, but racing all across the field here. Very entertaining.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you how close it is that we've seen a couple of those, the likes of Matt O'Donoghue and the likes of Harvey Dara, that when they get down there, they find it very hard to get back up. It's a bit like the championship, as I'm sure you know exceptionally well, Evan Dalton, as an Art City fan. Once you go down there, it's very hard to get back up. And
even
sometimes
if you do, you go straight back down.
Yeah, well, I'm a Cork City fan. I know all about that. But as Jordan takes a little bit too much curb on that exit, and there's a little bit. I think a little bit of caravanning there with the rear leading the front, but managing to collect it together. It goes to show you how quick the pace is here, and once you kind of get out of that flow and you lose your mojo a little bit, it can be very hard to get back into the flow of racing, especially if you've picked up a little bit of damage. So, in fairness to Jordan Kelly, did really well, did Jordan, in the the first race this evening, having had that damage to largely keep it together all the way down to the horseshoe at least. But once you kind of lose that flow of things, it's very hard to keep it going. As Simran Takar loses out to Sean McGoldrick, and then almost loses out Steve Powers, their accident there.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a nudge, and Matt O'Donoghue ended up on the grass on the run down to the International Horseshoe, but got back on okay. I imagine took a 1x for it, which will be fuming at, but got back on okay. Fastest lap of this race, interestingly enough, is a 43.6 for Campto Chukwa, so I can only imagine the monster slipstream he got on that one, but they're all running in and around the 44.
Oh, that's Campto Chukwa, speaking of.
Oh, no. I haven't done it in a while, but that is a commentator's curse of the ages.
Yeah, I mean, you cursed him like he was cursed before you even mentioned his impressive. Like just the mere thought of Campto Chukwa was enough to put him off the track. So a psychic commentator's curse there, because he was well off before you even mentioned his name. But Campto, unfortunately, one of the latest to fall foul of that outside on the eastern horseshoe, or the second horseshoe as is known. It's a very, very tricky corner. You want to get as wide as you can to try and open up that run down to turn 6, but if you lose a bit of grip on the outside, you're just heading straight for that wall. There's no way of stopping yourself. Right. Dylan McClemens, then Jordan Kelly, then Nick and Charlie here, and all of a sudden that two-horse race has become firmly now a battle for everyone else, as Nicky now is pushing Jordan Kelly, and we see these two go side by side. There is big beef going on here, more beef than a Supermax 5-ounce bacon cheeseburger. Let's see what happens between these two as we get towards the final lap of this race. This could be a very tasty one.
Yeah, they usually set the fireworks off about 9 o'clock on Rolex 24 weekend. They're going to be set off at about 10 to 10, just 50 minutes later here on RTA night. And Jordan Kelly is the one in the race lead by 3.5 tenths of a second. But this, just like a 5-ounce cheeseburger from Supermax, could get very tasty. Nicky Charlier in third, Rory O'Shea in fourth, Brandon McGaughan in fifth, and then we have Jan Zoutevella in sixth position, all still in race win contention here. This could be very NASCAR-esque down towards the main straight.
Yeah, and what's going to be very interesting is that Nicky's going to have to help Dylan down the back straight if they want to win. I mean, if these two guys
Yes, he
don't
is.
help each other, they're not going to win. So Nicky's going to help Dylan in as much as he needs to help his own race. But then beyond that, it's all every man for himself. And that 3/10 gap we talked about, that was with toe. So Jordan's going to have to absolutely nail this final corner to get himself out of trouble heading across the line.
Here we go then. It is about 5/10 of a second exiting the chicane. Nicky Charlier has got to push Dylan McClemens towards
slow down.
Kelly as he's got to slow down. Opportunity's gone a begging for Nicky Charlier. He's thrown that one away for potentially himself and for Dylan McClemens as well. He will lose the podium, but the drag race to the line is still on entering the tri-oval. Jordan Kelly on that inside. Dylan McClemens has got a monster of a run here. It's going to be equally as close as the first heat, and it is 0.022, which is going to feel like a mile away for Dylan McClemens.
Yeah, and ironically, as you said, Nicky's mistake actually was to Dylan McClemens' detriment, as Nicky had to pull out there and wasn't able to give Dylan the push. That could have been very interesting for Jordan. I'm sure nobody's happier about that than Jordan Kelly to see that mistake at the end. But Nicky, there will be some very choice language, I suspect, underneath the helmet of the number 3 car, because Nicky had a really good opportunity there to push and then catapult himself around the outside, but that late mistake, unfortunately for him. As we watch the last of this evening's runners, and Farrell, Queeveen, Brennan. Queeveen started at the bottom of the grid, came up a few places, but unfortunately had more issues. Colin O'Regan, as we saw on stream with that accident through the bus stop, is a big loser as well. And Peter Duke, we were talking about him being a potential candidate for a race 3 start. We're not sure what happened to the 77, but he finished well behind, as did Jared Love and Jamal Gandor, who apologised to Lawrence de Soswa in the chat. So an instant between those two in this second race. But it's Jordan Kelly who takes the plaudits, as he's our winner in the second race this evening.
Yeah, Jordan Kelly takes the win. Dylan McClemens in second position. Rory O'Shea in third. Brandon McGaughan in fourth, and Jan Zoutevella in fifth. Nicky Charlier in sixth. Matt O'Donoghue, Sean McGoldrick, Jack Wynne, Dr. Dean Power. In 10th, Simran Tacker, Tony Griffin, Lee Cogan, Conor Melia, Eric Killeen, Michael Corrie, Campto, Simon, Dave, and Dara O'Connor in 20th position. And in 21st, Dermot Toomey, Ian May, David Edwards, Stephen Donnelly, Phillips, and Enda Farrell, Queeveen Brennan, Harvey Dara, Peter McCann, Seb Weigel, Lawrence de Soswa, Colin O'Regan, Ross Wheatley, Sean Cullen, Peter Duke, Grace McCallion, Jared Love, and Jamal Gandor. Let's hear from our race winner, Jordan Kelly. Jordan, congratulations. It is your 4th win of the season, but you certainly had to work for that one. Going back to Heat 1 quickly, though, a couple of incidents there. Talk us through it from your perspective.
Sorry, and just before you answer that question, Jordan.
Yeah.
That you know what I'm going to say? All right, I'll leave it at that.
Right, I'll talk slower. I'll think before I speak. Anyways, I think it was that first race. It just felt to me like I was causing war crimes out there, really, because it was not good. Like I should have been out of the race when I hit the wall, but here we are. But we live and we learn. But no, the second race was good. I got double overtake into turn 1 was what helped me get the one there. Just it gave us, me and Dylan, a gap and let us sort ourselves out a bit there. So no, it helped a lot. But hopefully race 3 will be not a repeat of race 1 anyway. So.
Yeah, the run to the line in Daytona is always an interesting one, whether you want to be in front or behind. Both races have been won from in front, entering in or exiting the final chicane, I should say. Is that sort of your plan, the other driver's plan going onto the last lap, or is it just coincidence it's worked out that way?
It was just coincidence that time because I just wanted to stay ahead of Nicky kind of because if I didn't, we both would have got past there. So no, I'm surprised Dalton didn't get to overspeed him going onto the line because it's like the toe is really strong. So well, we'll see how race 3 goes, but I'd say it'll be more of what it was, nice slipstream battles.
Easier or more difficult to overtake than the Red Bull Ring and the Nürburgring?
I think easier, but it's hard when you're in a big like DRS train more or less. So well, it's not too bad at the same time.
Jordan, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for keeping it clean. And all going well, we'll chat to you again.
Thanks, Evan. Chat to
A
you
little
later.
bit of a clap there from Kevin Galvin. Second place with that very man is Dylan McLemens.
Yeah, Dylan joins us in race 2. Dylan, good result, second place for you. Ironically, I suppose, given your battles with Nicky Charlier last week, it was actually his mistake that kind of cost you a chance of having to go off Jordan, because I suspect he was going to give you a push there to the line, and that might have given you enough to get over the line to get the race win.
Well, coming into the lap bridge, I knew Jordan was gonna fly by. I kind of just try to hold back and hold people behind me up. So then it give me and Jordan a good chance for the line. Because then I think it secures both positions. Because then I could be sitting near fourth with the slipstream going on. So it's a pretty good result to be fair.
Yeah, you guys had a pretty big gap there at one point. I mean, it was a second and a half, but the toll around here is enormous.
Yeah, it's like getting back into the V's again. The amount of slipstream battles going on, but it's kind of figuring out where to be and what position to be. But I'm sure this last race will be chaotic.
Yeah, well, does that make you feel a little bit better? I mean, sometimes when you get into this feature race, it can be really hard to make overtakes. But like, if you can get in the right lane here, if you can get the right slipstream, the right toe, or the right push, so they say, you can shoot up the grid really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, 20 minutes around here is plenty of time to do some overtakes. I'm just gonna try hang back, but I say this, but I might just send it in the first lap. I don't know. I suppose I'll have a look and see what happens.
All right, well, we're looking forward to seeing it if you do. Dylan, congratulations, second place. Hopefully, talk to you at the end of the final race.
All right, cheers.
And I believe we have no time for Rory O'Shea. So I feel that's a bit like there's a Simpsons reference here about, normally we don't allow people to see this room, and this tour will be no different. So yeah, for any of you who watch Simpsons will know that reference. So yeah, straight to the feature race, and it's going to be Sean McGoldrick who leads us out with Matt O'Donoghue in second position, Evan.
Yeah, Matt back at the top will be an interesting one. Because definitely seemed to have the pace of the front runners, but just got unlucky in Heat 2. But interested to see what Sean McGoldrick can do towards the top of this field. Sean McGoldrick, of course, is a Porsche Cup champion in RTA. Won it back in the old variation of these cars. Still not happy that we're driving the new ones, but he won it back in the old ones, so has experience in racing Porsche machinery. Nicky Charlier starts third, Jan Zeltavella in fourth, Brad McLaughlin fifth, Rory O'Shea sixth, Dylan McClellan seventh, Jordan Kelly 8, Jack Wynn 19, Power 10th, then Simran Thacker and Tony Griffin, your top 11, or 11th and 12th in your top 12, I should say. It could be any number of them, really, to take this win. We haven't seen a regimented order in this evening so far. It could go anyway.
Yeah, and that toe is going to make a massive difference as well. So it's all about being in the right place at the right time. Some lovely shots in the distance. They would make great shots for a grid graphic, as we see the last of the car. That is Matt O'Donoghue take to the grid, exactly like that. There's some lovely scenic still shots, B-roll shots around this Daytona circuit, and that's one of the great things about it being on the service so much. Anyway, enough of that, all very pleasant stuff, as Matt O'Donoghue drops out here at the last moment.
Yeah, Matt O'Donoghue, is he going to take to the start, or is this just a blink? And Sean McGoldrick's brought down as well, and there's almost contact. Nicky Charlier just about avoids him, has to go under the apron, and Matt O'Donoghue is out of this one, dropping out of this race. It's a disaster from our front row, and Jan Zoutevella gets a much better attempt at turn number 1 this time round, and is able to take the race lead. It's the home hero, Nicky Charlier, in second position. Rory O'Shea, third in heat number 2, running third here from 6th on the first lap.
Yeah, one of the all-time worst starts from front 2 grid in any virtual race I've ever seen. One disconnects and one completely bogs down and drops down the order like a fly. Jan Zoutevella in there. Nicky Charlier jotting ahead, but Jan has gotten ahead of Nicky, and Jan will fancy his chances here. I mean, he's been up the front a few times so far this evening, well able to run in first place. Clearly has the pace when he can get things right, but just needs to cut out those mistakes.
Yes, good starts from elsewhere. We're looking at one of them, Tony Griffin, who's up 3 positions, looking to try make it 4, get past Jack Wynn, but it seems like Simran Tacker, Simi, is going to be able to get past him. Jan Zoutevella, though, the man from Putin, the Netherlands, is in the race lead. And Nicky Charlier is looking to put him under an awful lot of pressure in towards the Le Mans chicane. No, backs out really early. That would be an excellent fuel save if this was the Rolex 24, but it isn't, so that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but I mean, almost work. It kind of works, Evan. I'll give it to you. Yeah, Brandon McGahan in 4th position. He's the car we're looking at now, as well as Nicky Charlier, who is all over the back of Jan Zoutevella. I had more stats on the home place of Jan Zoutevella, so if you give me 2 seconds, you can come back to me.
Ooh,
and
he's almost
I'll
gone.
regale you as Jan almost loses it. Commentator's curse. Can he get it right in this opening corner? Goes wide again, cuts back to the inside this time, the 32 machine. That's a better line from Jan Zoutevella, as Jack Wynn has a slowdown here, so he's going to have to concede some places, as does Simran Tacker in the number 9 car. So both of those are going to have to try and bleed off some speed if they can. It is possible around here. You can do it by lifting and coasting a little bit, but you are going to give up positions, as Jack gives up a position to Tony Griffin. He still has that slowdown, as does Simran. So both of them need to get rid of that sharpish. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves in an unplanned trip to the pits.
Yeah, they're both okay there, but they've lost a significant amount of time to Sean McGoldrick in 7th position. With the tow, you can get up to about 300 kilometers an hour on that banking. So having a wobble at that speed is not going to be good for the status of Jan Zoutevella's race suit, to put it mildly. Nicky Charlier in 2nd also wouldn't have liked that moment. He's almost made contact once in this race at that moment on the straight. Nearly did it a 2nd time, but he'll back off once again, and you can see they all have to back off because of it, and that allows Dylan McClements to go hard on the brakes and catch up to Brandon McGahan. Dylan certainly not one for waiting around in the tow, as we've seen. He'll try and make a move as soon as possible. Brandon McGahan right in the tail of Rory O'Shea in the high pre in front. He's got to give him a little bit of a kiss on the back and then push him towards Nicky Charlier, who doesn't seem too keen on going for the race lead here, but Rory O'Shea, look at the overspeed he's got with Brandon McGahan pushing. This really is something out of a Daytona 500, heading down towards turn number 1. Unlike NASCAR, though, they've got to come to a very sudden stop here, and it is going to be Rory O'Shea to sling it round the outside in the high pre. There's no grip on that part of the circuit, so he's going to fall all the way back down to where he started, and that is side by side with Brandon McGahan.
Yeah, Snakes and Ladders Porsche Cup edition there for Rory O'Shea, as he tries to go up and ends up falling back down where he began. Jan Zoutevella getting the move done the outside, and last week might have been St. Patrick's Day, but we're definitely seeing plenty of Pogue Mahones around the back end of this track, because everyone giving each other a little peck, including Brandon McGahan, who's going for a little nibble in the back of Rory O'Shea as well in the 81 machine. So all getting very close for comfort here. Speaking of Jan Zoutevella, I said I'd come back to you with a few stats on Jan. And Jan is, if I can find where my cursor is, Jan is, as you said earlier, is from a place called Putten in the Netherlands, which is actually on the train line between Utrecht and Zwolle, if you know your Dutch geography. It was formerly a coastal town before the Dutch reclaimed all their land. It was on the old Zuiderzee, and it's been burned down on at least 5 occasions during the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries through various wars. Let's see if Jan can get the hot streak going. He's in second place at the moment, but he'll be gunning for first position.
Yes, he will be going for first very soon. And now looking to pull on the outside of... No, he's boxed in here. And Rory O'Shea looking for a little bit of razzle-dazzle down towards the first corner to counteract his snakes and ladders. But it is going to be Nicky Shar. Oh, is it Rory O'Shea stuck on the outside once again? He's got a little bit of a shoulder. And Nicky Charlier is able to stay in front for the time being. No, not able to get in front. As Rory is Brandon McGowan. No contact between the two. Round goes the Ballycastle native.
Oh, that's a pity for Brandon McGahan. He would have really eyed his opportunity in this final race, but unfortunately a tag almost a grudge out that fella as well, who wasn't on a train either to Utrecht or Zwolle this time, but was very much on a train between the final corner and turn number 1, managing to hold on to 6th position. But it just goes to show you how quickly everything changed. We talk about Jan being at the front of the pack this time. Last lap, he's now down to 6th position. Who's in first place? Nicky Charlier. Will he be there next lap? God only knows. As Rory O'Shea and Dylan McClements follow him, Rory has been up and around it at the moment, but he just can't get enough to get into that first position and hold first position. Let's remember, ladies and gents, all of you watching, thanks to all of you who are watching and commenting, and keep those comments coming. We'll read them out as we go. It doesn't really matter where you are now. Like, it doesn't matter if you're Nicky Charlier and you're in first at the moment, unless you can start to pull out 3 or 4 tenths a lap, which we're not seeing from any driver on this grid so far this evening. You're at the mercy of cars behind you. So there's going to be a great chance now that Rory is going to get a bump from Dylan, who's getting a bump from Jordan, and all 3 of them will work together against the Americans. This is Ryder Cup here, Ireland against America in this battle, and it looks like the Irish have it won momentarily, but I think Nicky's going to have plenty to say between now and the end of the race.
Yeah, Nicky Charlier boxed in. Rory O'Shea stays in front. Nicky is going to be feeling a little bit hard done by here. He's no fellow compatriots to battle with, and Dylan McClements lunges us up the inside. No love lost between these two, as we well know, but that was as clean as a whistle from Dunloy's Dylan McClements down towards the kink and the right-hander. I would not be surprised if Nicky Charlier tries to lunge one down the inside here, but the number 3 is just a little bit too far back. Oh, almost a little bit of a love tap between the two, but Nicky Charlier does have Jordan Kelly right behind him, so cannot afford anything silly. Rory O'Shea still in the race lead. We're not even halfway through this one.
Yeah, no love lost between these two, I can tell you that much. And the week after the Irish visit Washington, D.C., this time we're making more moves on the East Coast. Rory O'Shea, Dylan McClements, and Jordan Kelly all in amongst things. Dylan very much in with a shout here on the back of Rory O'Shea. But as you say, Nicky Charlier, he will be absolutely desperate to get one over the 88 car. We can only hope that it's done in a clean and safe manner, unlike some of the tactics employed by a certain other American who shall remain unnamed on this stream.
You just knew it was going there eventually. You just knew it was ending up there eventually. Here comes Dylan McClements on the back of Rory O'Shea. What's Nicky Charlier's approach here? It's going to be for the outside line and look to box Dylan in. He'll use a little bit of the side draft off the number 88, and Jordan Kelly doesn't really have anywhere to go here. Nicky gives them both a wide berth, knows that contact will be crucial at this point in the race, runs a little bit wide once again, and now Jordan Kelly is on the left, doesn't want to end up in that wall like he did back in heat number 1. And Nicky Charlier now has to defend after being the initial attacker in this race. Jordan Kelly has all that exit to use on the outside of the International Horseshoe, and that will put him alongside Nicky Charlier. We're on board here with Sean McGoldrick looking as they enter the kink. Nicky Charlier has to lift, and that is a textbook overtake at Daytona for Jordan Kelly. Committed it round the outside for the International Horseshoe, got the run down towards the kink and just forced the other driver out of it.
Yeah, great word there. Evan Walsh, your namesake, on the chat saying America making more contact with the West. And all I'll say is that I'm glad Jamal Gandor isn't involved in this, because given the country that he represents, it could go very badly for him. Right, Dave Collier getting tagged around in the Duke Collier Motorsport machine there. Off in the background, but he's not in the upper echelons, I think it's fair to say, as Dylan McClellan still on the back of Rory O'Shea, Jordan Kelly behind him. This is a fascinating battle between these three guys who know each other exceptionally well. Sean McGoldrick is there as well, and then we have the likes of Nicky and Jan and Jack Wynn, who Jack obviously has more experience now in the RTA series, and spoke very highly about the standard of the series in his video as well, and actually said that he was a little bit intimidated coming into the Formula V Scholarship Series, knowing about the reputation of the RTA Virtual Motorsport Series, as Jordan almost gets that wrong on Dylan. I was afraid that Dylan was going to crash into the back of Rory O'Shea, but thankfully all three of them making clean contact as the three green machines head into turn one on lap number 7 here at the Daytona International Speedway.
Yeah, just when we were commending the high quality and caliber of the series, that would have been the perfect time to have an 18-car collision. We almost had it, but just about avoided it. A little bit of a slide for both Dylan and Jordan through the first corner. Track temperature is rising here in Florida, 31.6 degrees now, so rising a little bit. Tyre wear may be high on these Porsches. It's been sort of cool conditions in Austria and the Nürburgring, so this would be the most energy being put through them. But Rory O'Shea is still leading. Dylan McClements in second. Jordan Kelly, Nicky Charlier, Sean McGoldrick, your top 5. But look at that snake all the way down to Michael Corrie in 15th position.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Campto at the back of the train, Rory O'Shea at the front of the train, but everything could completely change, and as we've seen, this train could also derail a la NASCAR. So it could happen around some of this banking if somebody gets something wrong. But thankfully, nothing so far. Rory O'Shea still leading in the 81 car. I'm pretty sure Dylan is kind of happy to leave Rory where he is. And try and go for a late push at the end. But some of these other cars don't quite have that luxury and will need to start making a move up shortly. Speaking of moves up, excuse me, Peter Chuk up 18% this evening, and can't seem to get any consistency, but he's up 18 places into 17th at the moment as Jordan Kelly temporarily heads into second position. That would make his 6th position gain, and Lawrence Soz was up 11 positions to P20 as well. Dylan McClements now getting back ahead of Jordan Kelly as they go too wide or back into single file now towards the International Horseshoe, and these guys are all very well used to racing in close quarters with each other, so I don't think any of them will be overly concerned about this. But of course, with iRacing, there's always that threat of the racing gods and indeed Netcode having their say. So they do, Evan, have to be very careful about exactly how close they get to each other.
Yeah, they do. And Rory O'Shea running Dylan and Jordan very close indeed. But dare I say, it's the most comfortable Rory's ever looked leading an RTA race. Often when he gets in front, he can look a little bit shaky. And there, speaking of shaky, is a Buncrana man dropping down the order. So that's a mistake for Jordan Kelly. He's now behind Jan Zouteveld and Nicky Charlier, and this is not ideal for Jordan. Dare I say the ideal scenario would be to have him and Dylan at the front and them two just working off each other like they have so many times before. But with him in the midst of battle, not an ideal scenario, and Jordan's going to be working hard to try and get back up to that 3rd place. But there is a second between Dylan McClements and Nicky Charlier, but that's nothing a bum track can't fix.
Absolutely, that's the thing. Like, once you're in and around the area, then you still have all the chance of doing well as well. So like, Nicky is in 3rd position. There is a bit of a concerning gap now for the guys behind him between himself and Dylan McClements, which seems to be getting wider as well, without a bump from Jan Zouteveld yet on the back of Nicky. Now he gets the bump that he needs, and Jordan Kelly in the back of Jan as well. So that gap will start to come down because obviously you've the power of 4 machines working against the power of 2 here. But they're all going to fan out this group heading into the opening corner. As I see a puff of smoke in the background, and that's Jordan Kelly. That's Jordan Kelly, number 11. And I think the bump draft had gone wrong, has it? We'll have a look at the RTA Virtual Motorsport Push Cup Series replay for the first time this evening. And it's the Buncrana man once again having issues. And I wonder, did the bump draft go wrong?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely went wrong, I think. Not an expert or anything, but looks bad.
That is not how to bump draft, I think it's fair to say. And unfortunately, Jan Zoutfeld is the one who really loses out there because he was the one that was smashed into the barrier. And now, all of a sudden, Rory O'Shea has 2 less drivers to compete with.
Gonna have 3 different winners this evening. Jan
Oh, no, Rory O'Shea! What a mistake!
Yep, and he's ran wide and lost 2 places. Could have been worse. Could have been worse for Rory O'Shea. Still in the tow here with 5 minutes to go, and it is Nicky Charlier versus Dylan McClements once again. McClements on the inside, Rory O'Shea giving McClements the bump down towards the Le Mans chicane, which will help him a little bit, and this is now 1 versus 1 versus 1. No teamwork. Nicky Charlier's nudged the 88, but they're both into the bus stop chicane, okay? And Nicky Charlier has run wide and around, and he's stopped in an awful position. Reverses off.
Oh, that was tight as the proverbial from Nicky Charlier, and it was always very untidy. I didn't expect Rory to be coming out on top there. I thought Dylan would head in first, and then Nicky would have to cede to Rory. Rory going through second and Nicky in third. But when Rory slipped in ahead and then Dylan got in ahead of Nicky Charlier, I'm not sure what happened. Did Nicky just get a bit unsighted with the 88 in front of him, or did he just get a little bit too greedy on the curbs? I'm not entirely sure, but didn't happen for Charlier. I will have to have a look again to see whether it was cause or effect for Nicky Charlier, whether he went around himself or whether he got a little bit of a help in terms of tapping Dylan in front. Let's have a look at so there's the bump, another one and another one, and that looks very suspect, I have to say.
I'd like to have another look at that one, to be brutally honest.
Yeah,
we have time, maybe from an off-board or something.
Yeah, let's have a look there, because let's have a look at Dylan McClements, because obviously Dylan has Rory O'Shea on the inside as well, but
I don't know. I really don't know. I think we need Dylan's telemetry, really.
Yeah, and I think
which we don't have access to, but there is ways to access it.
I'm sure it'll be I'm sure it'll end up in the stewards' room, and obviously it'll be just for the stewards to decide. And the one thing I would
never ends well.
Yeah, and but like it's hard to know whether it was that or whether it was just the fact that Rory was down the inside, and then Dylan had to kind of bleed off to allow Rory in, and did he just do it a little bit overly aggressively? Was it
the responsibility is usually on the car behind in incidents like that. So if Dylan hasn't broke necessary early, then that is 100% on Nicky Charlier. It is the car behind's responsibility in those situations to avoid the collision, but it all just depends on really how Dylan broke and when Dylan broke. So look, we'll leave the pointing fingers on that one to the stewards, I think.
And like we spoke about this before in terms of the stewards, and I've been very complimentary several times here, and I mean it genuinely, because anyone who watches the stream knows that we certainly say things that RTA admins would prefer we don't say from time to time. So I can tell you that we certainly are completely independent with Gantry TV, but having covered quite a few different series and having raced in a few different series, unfortunately, where stewards are also racing and have vested interests and show their vested interests, when you see the likes of Peter McCann, who is a league admin racing, and he gives himself a 15-point penalty for discretions, and oftentimes you'll see drivers themselves put their hands up and admit to their faults and accept their penalties. I think just people in this league really respect the stewards and respect that the stewards are, they are essentially judging every instant on their merit and just doing their best to try and come up with the correct decision regardless. So no favourites here, I can assure you that, in terms of the stewarding. Peter McCann has certainly given himself more than one penalty in the past, as has Jordan Kelly, who's obviously involved as well. So there's no love given or gained with the stewards, so they will decide it on its own merit, and they will have, as Evan said, access to the telemetry, which will inform them. But we were hoping that Dylan would have an instant-free evening. Look, it's always very hard to stay instant-free when you're running at the top of a grid, especially in a track like this where bump draft and things get very chaotic. But it's a bit disappointing for him. One of the comments saying Unk, Bicky and Simi in the top 10. That, of course, is Jack Wynn in 4th position, Eric Killeen in 9th position, and Simran Takar in 6th position. Between the Potato Nation and Jack Wynn fan clubs, they have plenty of interest in this, so they will be absolutely thrilled with the positions. And fair play to Jack Wynn, from spinning out, exiting the pit lane, to being just off there in the background. You can see from a last race podium, he's really gotten comfortable around this track and is starting to show the pace that we know he has.
He is. This is a really interesting last lap fight between Dylan McClements and Rory O'Shea. Dylan was weaving through the dog leg, and now as they exit the Western Horseshoe, exit turn 6 and turn 7, onto the banking for the final time. We have one more run through the Le Mans chicane, and Dylan really needs to get close to Rory O'Shea. I don't think Sean McGoldrick is going to be doing him any favours here. Conor Mealy and Simran Takar are battling as well, but got to keep an eye in the front here. It's down to a 10th and a half between Rory O'Shea and Dylan McClements. It's been the leader through the Le Mans chicane every time that has taken the race win. Is it going to be any different this time? The Highbury, very nice line between the two of it. Has he cut too much there? Oh, he has! Disaster for Rory O'Shea. He's picked up a slowdown on the last lap. Ambition has severely outweighed adhesion, and it's now between Sean McGoldrick and Dylan McClements to the run to the line. It is a multi-time RTA champion against a former Porsche Cup champion, and it looks like Dylan McClements just about has the run here. McGoldrick pivots to the high line. Is it going to be enough for Sean McGoldrick? No, Dylan McClements is able to take the win here in the Porsche Cups. It is his 2nd win of the season.
And speaking of wins, Jack getting a podium position. So the number 36 getting on the podium at the last minute through the Rory O'Shea mistake. And it's not even a question of ambition over adhesion, Evan Dalton, but more a question of ambition over regulation for Rory O'Shea. And you called it straight away. We could all see it here, that how much he cut off. He just bit that little bit too much more that he can chew, and cut off the inside of that final corner, and unfortunately found himself with a slowdown. So for Dylan McClements, a race win, having finished second twice. And for Sean McGoldrick, you said former Porsche Cup winner. He doesn't like the new Porsche Cups, but he's starting to get to grips with them. 2nd place finish, and what a great result for Jack Wynn. He was kind of out of it really in the first 2 races, but managed to get himself back in contention, and very much one of the big winners of that late mistake from Rory O'Shea. As Grace McCallion crosses the line, she's one of the last to come across here in the 38 machine. But yeah, top 10 finishes for for Unk, Bicky and Simi in this final race, as Grace McCallion crosses the line. Jordan Kelly and Joan Zoutvella unfortunately finishing in the pits after that big accident through the toe, and plenty of incident in this final race. But let's have a roundup of our feature results.
Dylan McClements takes the race win. Sean McGoldrick in 2nd. Jack Wynn in 3rd. Rory O'Shea in 4th. Conor Mealy in 15. Power in 6th. Simran Takar in 7th. And Camter Chukwa, Eric Killeen, Lee Cogan, Michael Corrie, Nicky Charlier, Peter Duke, Brandon McGohan, Simon Hutchings, Lawrence DeSoswa, Colin O'Regan, Seb Weigel, Stephen Donnelly, and Dara O'Connor in 20th position. And Dave Collier, Peter McCann, Ross Wheatley, Enda Farrell, David Edwards, Squeeveen Brennan, Phil Upson, Grace McCallion, Tony Griffin, Sean Cullen, Jordan Kelly, Jean Zerdavella, Jamal Gandor, Ian May, Dermot Toomey, Jared Love, Harvey Dara, and Matt O'Donoghue down the back. Disappointments for quite a lot this evening, but let's hear from your race winner, Dylan McClements. Dylan, congratulations. It is a 2nd win of the season, but another slightly controversial one. We'll start with the initial incident in the Le Mans chicane between yourself and Nicky Charlier. What happened there?
Right, so the corner before Rory, I nudged Rory a bit, didn't really mean to, so I wanted to try and give it back. He had the inside line, so I was going to back out anyway. There's no way I'm going side by side in the chicane, and Nicky just repeatedly hit my rear and ended his own race by himself.
Now, so you're saying you lifted to sort of let Rory through despite having the car behind?
Yeah, I mean, cause like it's quite dodgy. Cause if I went in there, I would have ruined my run. Like I think I know I did lift, but I'm sure Nicky realized that by the time he hit me after like the fifth time.
Yeah, no, we're just watching the replay on it here for the viewers at home, and you can definitely see what Dylan's talking about. In terms of, I suppose, this season, Dylan, multiple incidents and moments like that, you've always been sort of a driver who had a very cautious approach. What's changed here in the Porsche season?
Well, I know the first two rounds I went all out. After being 8 months or so in the V, I think I got a bit carried away at the first two rounds. This round, I've took it really careful, and I know there's a bunch of incidents against me now, but that's that's what they think. But we'll see what the stewards have to say. But I think I'm gonna have a change coming forward. I'm not gonna be as rogue.
Now, not to be all too doom and gloom, you have taken the race win, second of the season. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, good race between me and Rory, but shame he got the slowdown.
Championship ambition?
I have to say, because I meant the people part incidents against me because they have I don't know, but I mean, I'll try my best anyway, because I'll try to win every race. Because why not?
Dylan, thank you very much for joining us, and massive congratulations.
Thank you.
And now, our second place finisher tonight, almost winner with Kevin, is Sean McGoldrick.
Sean, certainly wearing the Rexy colours with pride in the 33 machine. And I don't know if you've seen our chat in the stream, but loads of people putting you forward as our driver of the day for this evening. Tell us a little bit about kind of how the evening went for you.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Qualifying, I think, was okay. The race one, I was going pretty well, and then I spun all by myself as I was looking at my relative to see where Campton was, because I knew he was wearing the same livery. So that one was on me. I think I started race two in like P27 or something like that. So getting back up to P2, I'm absolutely delighted.
Yeah, it was a fabulous race, and of course you were one of those who benefited from Rory's late mistake. It was very nip and tuck there, and I suppose you kind of have to. You'd want to be watching a bit of NASCAR to do well around here, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's all about the draft and the bump, and yeah, Rory's mistake. I hadn't realized until too late. I was lining up to give Dylan a bump, and then I had to back off to give myself room to get the slingshot again, and I didn't have quite enough at the end. So that was a little bit disappointing, but I'm delighted with P2.
I'm just interested. You mentioned Dylan there, and we just spoke to him about that incident with himself and Nikki. I'm just wondering, did you get a view of that going into the bus stop and a few laps before the end?
Yeah, I did. I can't actually. I think for some reason it looked to me like Dylan was ahead. I can't remember it all that well now. But Nikki didn't sound too happy. I don't know how it looked on the stream.
Yeah, we're very interested to see what that stewards. We're just looking at your onboard now as we look at the incident there. But yeah, I mean, look, you are a former Porsche Cup winner, of course, in RTA, and yeah, and Ronan just said here in the background a superb avoidance from you as well, just getting past Nikki. We just had a look at it from the onboard. But you said you're not as well, I suppose you don't enjoy these new cup cars as well, but it seems like you're really
Yeah,
getting to grips with them.
I think I'm starting to. The key is to keep out of the ABS, out of the traction control, but it's really hard to feel when that's happening. Like there's times in a braking zone when you'll run really deep, and other times when you'll pull up 10 meters short and you're far too slow for the corner. So I think once I get the hang of that, then the natural balance of a Porsche I think suits me. It suits the way I like to drive the car. So hopefully I figure it out and be chatting to you again before the end of the season.
Well, we certainly hope so, and we expect so. And Sean, I can confirm that you are indeed our Gantry TV driver of the day this evening, and a very
Yep.
popular one as well. Loads of people putting you forward for it, including Kevin Joyce and Johnny Hollywood. So, major congratulations, not just on that, but your second place finish, and looking forward to seeing you get more and more comfortable with the braking, with the brake pedal in this machine as we go through the rest of the series.
Thanks.
Right, so that is our second place finisher and driver of the day, Sean McGoldrick. And I suspect we're going to have a very surprised and very pleased Jack Wynne joining us for a final interview this evening.
Yeah, as popular a podium finisher as ever. The last time we spoke to Jack was to congratulate him on winning his real world drive. We speak to him now on the podium in Daytona. Jack, the evening started out with you spinning in the pit lane and it's ended with a podium. Talk us through that roller coaster.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. First time in the lovely commentary booth. It's very plush here, I have to say. Yeah, no, race was fun. It was nice moving up through the field. Turn one, I was pretty strong there. I was strong there throughout the whole weekend. In usual, I am strong in that corner, going up the inside. It's very grippy, so I was able to get like a ridiculous amount of moves done there. Did have contact with Harvey, which I'm sure we'll discuss afterwards. Shame about that. That's probably one little stain on otherwise a really nice, very feisty race. So it was great crack with everyone, like always.
Yeah, a lot of the gentlemen we've spoken to this evening were fighting up the front. You had the experience of sort of fighting in all three stages of the grid. How difficult was it to make those moves, or how easy?
It was tricky because everyone has their own way of dealing with this car. You know, you can, as soon as you pick your breaking point, you're really committed to certain lines. So whether you're going around the outside of someone, you have to be prepared to kind of bail out. I think some people were prepared to bail out and some people weren't. And yeah, in general, it was fun. It was dicey, very dicey, very fun.
Well, a podium for you at Daytona. Next week we head to the site of your first RTA podium, Silverstone. Are you looking forward to that one?
Correct. Yeah, Silverstone, great track. Hopefully the weather is UK-ish. That would be nice to have another wet race at Silverstone. The last time we were there was wet in the V's. A wet race there would be mega, but any racing at Silverstone would be nice. Yeah, looking forward to it, 100%.
Jack, thank you very much for joining us and congratulations.
Thanks very much, boys.
So we'll let Jack get back to what I imagine is going to be a fairly feisty steward's room, but great to hear from top three, and especially two drivers who we don't get to hear from often, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I certainly expect Sean to be featuring a little bit more, but definitely huge bonus territory for Jack Wynne, of course, who focused so much on the scholarship series, and he'll have that to look forward to as we head back to Mondello for the latest round of the Formula V's, of course, this weekend. But for Jack, this series is just kind of a bonus to keep himself ticking over, get a bit more content for the channel, as we look at that contact between Dylan McClements and I'm trying to remember who that is. No, it's the 89 car. That's Brandon McGahan. Sorry,
Oh,
in the
yes, sorry.
Jägermeister car going through the International Horseshoe. There are plenty of contact in this one. And Evan, this was a messy evening, I think it's fair to say.
It was a messy evening, but a lot of the drivers didn't really expect it to be anything different. There was a lot of chatter amongst practice last night that this was going to be a tough one, and it was. It was a race of attrition, a race of survival, and you can see those who kept their nose clean, Jack Wynne, was a big beneficiary. So it goes to show that sometimes the tortoise does beat the hare.
Well, absolutely, or in this case, the dinosaur. Right. Very many thanks to all of you for joining us on the chat. We will be heading back to Old Blighty for next week's affair, 31st of March, the final day of the third month of the year. We will be heading to the Grand Prix version of Silverstone. I believe that is the full version of it, for maybe, potentially, or maybe not, a wet weather race. I know Jack Wynne is hoping for a wet weather race, but whether we'll get that or not, I'm not sure. it's plenty of rain anyway forecast in this country for the next week, but whether that will make its way across the shore for next week, that remains to be seen. So Silverstone is where we'll be next week, and then we kind of head that transatlantic route after that. Head to rtavirtualmotorsport.com for all of the updates on the RTA Porsche Cup, including all of the penalties from what's surely going to be a very feisty stewards room this evening, and of course the updated standings. Many thanks to our sponsors as always, Trophy.ai. We got some great subscriptions thanks to Jack Wynn last year to give to some of our best drivers, and really enjoying that continued sponsorship of really innovative use of AI in the sim racing space. Thanks as well to Bois Motorsports as always for their continuing coverage. I'm looking forward to being clipped and put on their Instagram this week, and I can't imagine what clip that Evan will choose for that. And also thanks so much to Mondello Park for, of course, their ongoing support of RTA, and really looking forward to seeing our RTA virtual motorsport drivers on the grid of the Formula V's in time to come. But until then, or until at least next week at Silverstone, have a good week. Enjoy the good weather. We will have some of it heading into this weekend. Enjoy that. Have a great time at Mondello. If you're heading down, of course, for the next round. Oh, Kirkistown, sorry. My apologies. Kirkistown for the latest round of the ICR. And my thanks, as always, to Evan Dalton and indeed Rodan Hedeman for their help in the broadcast. But until next week, slán go fóill.